Welcome everyone to this Up and Running with NodeRED video series. My name is John Jardim from Agilit-e, and today I'm going to show you how to make full use of the NodeRED Editor within your browser. Before we begin, there's just a few notes that I want to bring to your attention. For this demonstration, I'll be using my NodeRED runtime on IBM Cloud. If you're using a local NodeRED runtime, it should be 100% fine, no worries, you'll easily be able to follow with. The only real differences would be maybe the amount of nodes that I have available on my side, and the version that you're using might be different to the version that I'm using. So you can see over here I am using 0.17.5. You might be using a later or previous version, and as a result of that the user interface might be slightly different. A final point, NodeRED works on most browsers and it works well. I do feel, however, that Firefox and Chrome give me the best experience when working with the editor. So let's get started. So here I have the NodeRED Editor opened up inside my Firefox browser. If you're struggling to get to this point or you don't really know much about NodeRED, I highly recommend that you go to my blog and follow this video series by going to bleedingcode.com/category/NodeRED blog series, and specifically part 2 where I show you how to set up NodeRED on IBM Cloud. So let's start with the top right section. Over here we have the deploy button, the user icon, and the main menu. The deploy button is used to deploy whatever flows or configuration changes that have been made in the browser editor to the server side, because all flows run on the server side of NodeRED and not within the client side. If no changes have been made within your browser editor, the deploy button will be grayed out like this. But as soon as you do make a specific change, like renaming a tab or dragging a node into the flow canvas, you'll notice that the deploy button goes red, meaning that there are changes that need to be committed. So this is very important later on when we're working with our flows, because I see this a lot where people go and create a certain flow or modify a certain flow, and then they forget to click on the deploy and start asking questions of why it's not working. So very, very important. The second menu, the user icon over here, just allows you to go and log out of your session. The final menu is the main menu, and this allows you to go and make some configuration changes to your editor. We'll be looking at some of these changes in a short while, but some are quite advanced and we'll leave them for a later tutorial. The main part of the NodeRED editor is divided into these three sections. The first is what we call the node palette, and this lists all the available nodes that you can use within your flows. Think of these as node templates. In order to use one of them, you would have to drag them into the flow canvas. You'll see that these nodes are grouped by specific categories, and as a default all these categories are expanded. When looking for a specific node, it's better to go and collapse these categories, and you can go do that by clicking on this icon at the bottom, and the icon next to it just expands those categories again. Another way of searching for a specific node is just going into the search box over here and typing in whatever node you're looking for. So for example, if I'm looking for a Watson node, I can just type in Watson, and it will return all the nodes that are related to IBM Watson. If I'm looking for the Twitter node, I can just type in Twitter, and it will return the nodes related to Twitter. At some point you'll notice that the node palette starts getting overcrowded, and you'll also realize soon that there are specific nodes that you might never end up using. What we can do here is go to the right menu and click on Manage Palette. Here we can find nodes that we are not interested in. So let's take an example, Feed Parser. I'm not interested in the Feed Parser node. I'll most likely never use it. So I can just do a search for Feed Parser, and I can see over here, here's the Feed Parser group, and here's the node. I can go and click on Disable All, and that will go and switch off the node. If I click on Close here, and I search for Feed, you'll notice that it's still appearing. Okay. What we need to do is we need to refresh the browser window for this to disappear from the list. It's just something I thought I'd mention to everyone. So let's go do that now quickly. And if I now go and try and search for Feed Parser again, you'll see it's no longer appearing in the search results, so it's been removed from the node palette on the left. If I want to bring that Feed Parser node back, I can just go back to the menu, click on Manage Palette, search for Feed Parser, and enable it. So the good news is when you enable the Feed Parser node, you don't have to refresh the browser. If I go over here and start searching, it automatically appears. So it's only when you disable nodes that you'll have to refresh the browser before they disappear from the node palette. The next section is what I call the flow canvas. This is where all the magic happens. To create a flow, drag one or more nodes onto the canvas and join them together at their node ports. You do this by clicking and holding on the one port and dragging the wire to the next. Once you have joined all the nodes that make up your flow, click on the deploy button on top and your flow is ready to go. As you create more flows, you'll soon start running out of canvas space. One method to assist with this is to zoom out of the canvas, and you do that by clicking on this icon here. You can also zoom into the canvas and reset it to its original state. Another great way to manage flows is to group them into tabs. By default, the canvas will always have one tab, and you can see ours is here called Flow 1. To add another tab, click on this plus icon and a new tab will automatically be created in the canvas. We can modify the names of these tabs by double clicking on the label, which will open up the tab property box. We can change the tabs and click on Done. Remember that in order for these changes to take effect, you have to click on the deploy button. To remove a tab you no longer need, activate that tab in the canvas and click on the menu at the top right. Select Flows and then select Delete. This will delete the tab from the canvas. Please note that any flows within that tab will also be deleted. And again, in order for these changes to be committed, you have to click on the deploy button. The last section is called the sidebar, and it's divided into two tabs, Info and Debug. The Info tab is a placeholder for detailed information related to a certain node. And in order to see that information, you'd have to highlight the node either in the canvas or in the node palette on the left. So if I click on this function node, you'll see the Info tab is populated with everything that you need to know about that function node. What it is, how it works, how to use it, and what to expect from it. At the bottom over here, you'll also see that there is a small window that's providing random keyboard shortcuts. As you become more familiar with NodeRED, learning some of these keyboard shortcuts will really help improve your overall experience with the editor. The Debug tab works very similar to a web browser's console window. You'll see over here we have the Debug Node that I used in my example, and here it is under the output category inside the node palette. By using this node, you can output certain information from your flow when it's running. This is great for troubleshooting a flow if it's not giving you the result that you're expecting. And believe me, you'll be using this more often than not. If we take the example of the 3 nodes that I created earlier on, this trigger node is going to provide a timestamp as by default, and it's going to send it through the flow. And because we've got the debug node here at the end, that payload will be delivered to the debug window on the right hand side here. And I can test this right now by just clicking on this trigger. There's the timestamp from the trigger node that was delivered to the debug window. Just one final tip. You can launch the debug window over here in its own window by clicking on this icon. And you'll see when this loads, oh there we go. So now the debug window is running in its own window, and we can now go and close this sidebar. This gives us more canvas space, but our debug window is still running. So if I go and click on timestamp again, it gets written to this window and it allows us more space in our canvas to work with our flows. This works especially well if you've got another screen that the debug window can sit on. So that's a wrap for this tutorial. I trust it's been informative and that you are feeling a lot more comfortable with the NodeRED Flow Editor. Should you want to get in touch with me or Agilit-e, here's our contact information. And until next time, happy coding.